Just going. Okay, so I'll start over. Welcome, everyone. And for those of you that are new, welcome. And those that have been here before, welcome. I'm Sandra Wallace, the OCD, anxiety, and depression coach. And I want to welcome you to what we call the Gathering Place. The Gathering Place was originated back in the fall. I was thinking of ways that we could bring together people and bring them together with the opportunity to be able to share what it is that's on our mind and our hearts as it relates and pertains to mental health concerns. So the spectrum is broad and the questions that come up are broad as well. So each month I've delegated a certain topic that we can talk about, but based on people's needs and feedback that we're getting at our website. And for those of you who haven't visited our website, it's www.theocdcoach.com. And you can also email us at info@theocdcoach.com. So the intent of tonight's Gathering Place is to be able to ask the questions as they relate to medication and as they relate to a group of different types of mental health concerns. And of course, because my expertise lies in anxiety, depression, and obsessive compulsive disorder, I have catered and focused the talk tonight around those three particulars. But if there's other questions people have that aren't necessarily pinpointed to those three, but just want to ask a general question, we have our community pharmacist here tonight, HJ, and he's going to share with us some of the common questions that people ask. He's going to share with us some of the answers and recommendations. So I want to start by welcoming and thanking you for being here. How are you doing this evening? It sounds like you just wrapped up your day at the the pharmacy. You're still there?
Excuse me. Yeah. It was a busy day. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to the session this evening.
Okay, great. So let's start by asking you some of the questions that people have brought forward through the website and just from my own one-on-one coaching with individuals. I do a lot of coaching around families and the person going through anxiety or going through depression or OCD or all three sometimes. I know for myself, I had all three at one time in my life and it was really difficult to manage. So some of the questions, I'm just going to throw them out there, HJ, is number one, a question that I get sometimes, and I don't always know how to answer this, so I'm glad someone has asked this question. Are there any over-the-counter medications or supplements that can help with anxiety, OCD, or depression?
So the answer to the question is yes, there are over-the-counter medications that will help with anxiety and depression. For people who maybe are not able to access or don't necessarily want to go the route of prescription therapy. So there's several, and they're very commonly found in any pharmacy. Some of the more common ones that you will hear about are magnesium. I can just list them, and then we can kind of
Sure.
dive into each one if you like.
Thank you.
Magnesium, which is, again, it's available in synthetic forms in pharmacies, in tablets or liquid forms. It's also commonly found in, good dietary programs, leafy green vegetables, seeds and nuts and things like that provide good sources of magnesium. So that is very easily attainable. Another one that's common in the media these days and in the marketplace are omega-3s. So omega-3s are found to be very good for mood stabilization. They most commonly, most of the media surrounding them revolves around heart health, and it does that as well. So that's like a corollary or collateral benefit, but they do offer help in certain mental illness conditions as well. Um, a third one that's, and again, we commonly get a lot of questions about omegas and about magnesiums, and that's probably because they're used for many other things. But some of the other ones that you will find are things like L-theanine, and I'm reading that because I can't pronounce it very well.
It's okay.
So it's of the amino acid variety, right? So amino acids um, are very useful in functions as they relate to cognitive functions.
Okay.
And specifically for anxiety, these ones are largely for. Lavender is another one that's listed as an over-the-counter one. Ashwagandha. Yeah, these are all commonly, or chamomile is another one, commonly found, easily attainable, over-the-counter medications that can be used for anxiety, depression, and bridging the gap into the OCD arena as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting. When you said lavender, I thought of essential oils. I'm always using, when I'm coaching individuals, I'm always using my essential oils for myself just to keep my, I use a lot of peppermint because it helps relax me, and I use lavender and all different essential oils. So it just kind of helps keep me grounded and focused. So I know for myself, I can speak on that. So do you ever get any questions about the essential oils while we're on the subject?
Yeah, that's another a real hot item in the marketplace. Aromatherapy is huge, and actually, it's interesting that you bring it up because have been several trials done that show that lavender, for example, we're talking about lavender specifically, is a great way to actually will reduce symptoms, minor anxiety symptoms, and things like insomnia as well.
Oh,
So a lot of these types of substances are gaining ground in the marketplace, and studies are being done. So that's very encouraging to see that they will, have benefits in the future for health conditions.
yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. So, and if anyone has any questions for our pharmacist, HJ, as we're going along, please just raise your hand and don't hesitate. I can bring you on and we can ask the question. And the other question is, what are the potential side effects of the medications? Maybe I should start with asking, what are the types of medications used to treat these three conditions? What I like to know about it, like what I feel comforted knowing, is that the class of drugs used, which you're going to likely get into in more depth, is the same class of drugs can be used for all three of these conditions that we're talking about. So that's comforting to know, but there's a few things I would have to take into consideration, which I'm sure you're going to mention as far as doses and what types and class of drugs. So can you share a little bit about what you prescribe to people, what you see come through your counters, through your dispensary quite often, or some of the maybe challenges you've seen your clients or your customers, pardon me, have had with medication? That's a loaded question, sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's covers a lot of areas. So we at our dispensaries do quite a bit of dispensing for anxiety, for depression, for OCD. And the main classes that we deal with they come from sort of the beginnings. In the beginnings there was largely a class called tricyclics, which were used. These are medications. They're very old. They still exist today. They still are used predominantly more for sleep disorders, more so than any kind of cognitive function. However, I will put a caveat on that and say that they do appear in adjunctive therapy. So fast forward, we use largely a class of medications now called SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And like Sandra had mentioned, sometimes the dosing, or most times the dosing for these medications is higher than, especially for OCD, than typically it would be seen for maybe depression or for anxiety. Um, and then if that's not producing satisfactory outcomes, you may see what they call adjunctive therapy, where another class of medication that may be added on and used to achieve the desired outcome. So there is several classes, and the areas between dosing and between where one stops and the other starts is often gray. For people who are melancholy in nature and want black and white, sometimes that doesn't exist here. You have to try one. And the other thing that sometimes complicates it is response times are not immediate, they're not fast. Sometimes it can take weeks, maybe as much as a month or more before you get a desired effect. And that's assuming, you have to get to the right therapeutic level to have that effect. And sometimes that titration upwards in order to, minimize side effects and adverse effects, you want to do it slowly. It can take time. So often, that's they don't operate like antibiotics where you take it for 7 or 10
Right.
days and then
Yeah,
it's rectified. So
good
so
point.
that's one of the challenges that we see.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And that's what I often tell the clients when I'm working with them, is to be patient,
Mm-hmm.
because it has to be a gradual process, but hopefully the particular drug that they're on will be the one that they are benefiting from. Sometimes I've seen clients have to switch medications 2 or 3 times to get the right drug and at
Right.
the right dose. So it could actually take months, having said that. So, but what I really like about the medication is it doesn't necessarily take as long to get to the point where we take the edge off the anxiety. So that part I like, because once the person is on medication, I've had a few different scenarios, and I'll just share one quickly. There was a lady that came to me and wanted to work on I have 4 different programs. I have one program called the 10-week win. And that's meeting every week for 30 minutes for 10 consecutive weeks to build momentum and get a person's tailor-made program designed for them, which is not a cookie cutter program. But her anxiety was so high that I could not bring her on as much as I wanted to, because I knew that she would not benefit from the program given the state of and frame of mind she was in and the level of anxiety. So we got her started on medication, and she was only on it a couple weeks, and then she came on my program and we were able to start the process. So by the time we created this tailor-made program based on her anxiety themes, we were able to get that program and that list created. And by that time, she was able to start what we call CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, exposure response prevention, where we expose ourselves to the fears, but we prevent ourselves from doing that typical compulsion or ritual to alleviate our anxiety. So there was that scenario. And then the second scenario was when somebody wanted to start the program and was totally against medication. And I respect that. I think medication works for certain people, and for other people it doesn't work, or other people they want to take the more natural route in therapy. So either or, I respect it. But this person was very adamant about not taking medication. But over time, we had that conversation periodically in our sessions, and they realized that they were causing themselves more frustration and more anxiety and higher levels of depression because of not being on medication. And once they got on the medication, the results were phenomenal. So I've seen where medication can be a real blessing for people. So I just wanted to share that for our audience in case there's someone out there that's contemplating that right here and now, thinking, should I be on medication? Should I not? Because I always tell people that for OCD specifically, I always tell people that part of it is biological. So it's our neurotransmitters that are firing off false signals. And part of it's behavioral. It's learned. So I think the combination of being on medication for the biology, neurobiological, I can't say the word, neurobiological piece is really good. But then we still have to deal with the learned behavior part, whether it's anxiety, depression, or OCD. So that's where the CBT comes in and makes a really nice fit together. So, okay, so let me ask you, I think we've answered a few of the questions that people reached out with on those. Maybe we could dive into, are there any specific drug interactions or precautions that I should be aware of when taking medications for these types of concerns?
Excuse me, there's always the consideration that has to be given to um, things like drug interactions, I know drug toxicities and so forth. And as the drug database becomes more and more, like wider, there's more and more choices.
Mhm.
There's more and more areas where, we're treating, we alluded to adjunctive therapy where you're putting more different types of medications on board at the same time to get the desired effect. So there's always there's more and more problems, not so much problems, but challenges with that, with medication interactions. So yeah, there's many, and that's a lot of what we do. So I'll give you, for example, a
Sure.
common one, because we're a lot of these medications, when we're operating in the cognitive areas of the body, i.e. the brain. So it's very difficult. And this is one of the challenges of, of pharmaceutics right from day one, this concept of structure activity relationship, where you're designing a medicine to just treat one area of the brain or one area of the body. Well, that's not really realistic, and that's not how it works. So you may have a concentration in one area of the brain producing a desired effect, but then you've got medication floating around in other areas of the body, and it's doing, it can be doing other things. So, for example, in we'll talk about the SSRI class, which we excuse me, have mentioned already for the treatment of anxiety and depression, because it works largely on receptors in the brain. One of the side effects is maybe dizziness or maybe sedation. So there's ways to, I mean, it's important to be aware of them. There's ways that you can work around them if you can. For example, once a day dosing, if it causes you to be a little bit of tiredness, a little bit of sedation, then we usually recommend people take it in the evening when they don't need to be that alert.
Right.
So there's a myriad of these. The other thing we got to be aware of is the interactions that can occur. So, for example, one thing that's come out more recently, and it's not a huge clinical problem, however, it does exist, and that's with SNRIs, and that's another class, and we often use one called venlafaxine. People who take venlafaxine in high doses, and again, when we're treating some of the like OCD, for instance, doses are often quite higher than normal to achieve the desired outcome. That in people who are on blood thinners, for example, this medication can actually thin the blood a little bit more, so they would be potentially more prone to a bleed.
Mhm.
So anybody with maybe a history of ulcers, people who are on blood thinners for AFib or stroke prophylaxis, these are the kind of things that play into the the situation, or when we get a prescription for somebody, a new dose, a dose change, a dose increase. Lots of times, for example, with increases in dose, we recall we're elevating doses here. Often the side effects and the considerations given to a new dose or a new medication coming on board, those same considerations are given when you increase it. So, for example, if you double the dose, you're more likely to have side effects again and drug interactions again. And that can occur with any class of medications, whether it's prescription medications, whether it's the OTC market that we talked about earlier, I think one of the common ones used to treat common OTC medication to treat depression, I believe, is St. John's wort or maybe ginkgo biloba. Those ones have a long history of drug interaction. So,
Mhm.
for the general, the best advice is if you're going to start something, always ask, the
Yeah.
healthcare professional, go to a pharmacy, talk to them, because they're, they're knowledgeable about over the counter stuff as well as
Yeah.
the behind
Yeah.
the counter stuff. So,
Right. And that's really important when we say OTCs, which you clarified over the counter. Sometimes people fail to recognize that there could be contraindications with it. They think that, well, because it's not a prescription, therefore it doesn't really matter. I can take it.
exactly. Yeah.
But I'm really glad you touched on that. That's why when I'm doing a intake, when I first meet with a client, I spend the first 1 to 2 sessions going over a really good snapshot of family history and
Yes.
also the individual's history with, are they on medication? What else? We're not just talking mental health, we're talking physical health, holistic health. So it's important to know those things. So thank you. And I just have a couple more. Um, how this question, I think you've kind of answered it, but how can I ensure that I'm taking my medication correctly and at the right dosage?
Well, to take it at the right dosage, again, we're talking about an interdisciplinary approach to healthcare here, regardless of what we're treating, right? So you've got, your prescriber, your physician, your psychiatrist, your counselor, your coaches, everybody who's on the team, right, is working for to achieve the optimal outcomes. So
Mhm,
you want to keep the communication open. Don't be, ask the questions.
mhm,
Each person in that team, will have their sort of area of expertise.
mhm,
So, like for myself, for example, a lot of my collaboration is with physicians who write prescriptions, and they're asking questions like what the things that we've been talking about,
mhm.
dosing and drug interactions and so forth.
Okay.
So that's sort of where we focus. And so, but that doesn't mean we have all the answers. So
Right.
your coaches will tell you, you know, stuff that's important to them and in their domain, and the nurse
Mhm.
may do the same,
Sure.
and
Yes.
prescribers. Everybody's it's a team approach. So none of us are out there thinking we kind of know it all.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit if I have a question, about something that's going on with one of Sandra's, clients or my doctor's clients, then I reach out to them, because I don't want to, be guessing at anything. So,
Right. That's a good advice because we don't know everything. That reminds me of a saying I learned a while ago through one of my mastermind trainings was if you're the smartest person in your group, you need to find new friends. So you've got to
yeah,
always be around people that are like-minded and also that are always learning and growing and stretching.
yeah,
So
with a bigger
can I
group.
just
Yeah.
yes, for sure. Can I just add to that is another thing I thought of when you were mentioning that HJ was that there's also the piece of the medication part that people really grasp onto and they hold on to is the fear that they may have to be on medication the rest of their life. And that doesn't sit well with everyone. So
Mhm.
again, I can't predict that. All I can tell them is wait it out. Allow yourself at least a minimum of a year to be on the medication. Make the behavioral changes together with me as your coach, which is my favorite part, is helping design the program and really zoning in on their needs and being able to change their behavior or how they interpret and perceive the world. Because a
Mhm.
lot of the anxiety, everything is learned behavior. The only things we're born with are two fears, right? The fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else we've learned. So let's take the time to unlearn the behaviors that my clients have learned over the progressive stages of decades or months or years, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And then maybe look at decreasing the medication and just getting to a lower therapeutic range. I know one of my clients was on a very high dose of antidepressants, and through working through her anxiety and depression, she did not have OCD, but working through her anxiety and depression, those symptoms lifted because she did the hard work of CBT and ERP, and now she's on a very low dose. And it may just be a placebo effect, we don't know, but she likes the idea of staying on the medication at the lowest dose possible and having the quality of life that she now has and deserves. So I tell people, just be kind to yourself, give it time, let the medication do its thing while we're working simultaneously with the exposure piece. And often when I say that, people are quite accepting of it because they haven't had to make that definite decision. Yes, I will be on it all my life, or no. And the reality is, a lot of times people will just say, I don't care if I have to be on this medication. My quality of life has been changed so much because of part and parcel of it, that some of them say, I'll take the risk of having to be on it. So it works both ways. So I just wanted to add that piece in case the person asking that question is in that situation. And I think that's it, unless there's something that that we failed to talk about that any of the people listening want to ask. Please feel free to do so. If not, we will definitely have you back in the future, and we will talk more about maybe some specific types of drugs that people, or more the common drugs that people are using that work over others. That would be great. And I know you've had a long day. You started your day at 6 this morning, so I'm sure you want to get home. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time at the end of the day. Sometimes our minds are kind of worn out by the end of the day. And with your line of work, I'm sure that's often the case. You're always thinking throughout the day. So I want to thank you for thinking about us here at the Gathering Place to be part of it. And much respect for what you do in your daily life. So thank you again.
Okay, well, thanks very much for having me, and absolutely anytime if if people want to, or if they're reaching out and have questions, we can certainly come back. I'd be delighted, and we could tailor some questions, zero in on certain areas, or whatever you think might be helpful. So thank you for the opportunity,
Okay.
and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay. Take good care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, for all of those that are still with us at the Gathering Place, I just want to thank you for being here and taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. We will have, these are all recorded, so we will have this up on our website as soon as I can download it and get it to my virtual assistant in the Philippines, Daisy. She looks after all this for me. And if there's no other questions, I will remind you of our monthly Q&A. I'm just going to check the exact date because it's hard to believe it's February 1st tomorrow. On the first Monday of every month, we have a Q&A. And this month, the Monday falls on February 5th. At 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will come on here again, just like we did tonight, but it's more geared for questions and answers around anxiety, depression, OCD, and anything else you really want to throw out to me. I'm more than happy to discuss as it pertains to mental health. So those Q&As are every first Monday. I tried to make it so people could remember it easier. First Monday of every month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we get on and we meet and we talk about questions that people have submitted. If you are more comfortable submitting your question in advance, feel free to send it to info@theocdcoach.com. If you want to come on and ask your question right on live, that's fine as well. And we'll just pick up each month with the questions that and the desires that people want to know answers to. And then the last Wednesday of every month, which since we're on, I will tell you the last Wednesday is February 28th. We will meet same time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about, specifically about OCD, I'm just going to grab my books here. I should actually have these on display. So, they're back there, but you probably can't see them. I have had the privilege and honor to be part of 3 books. My first book called Stop Obsessing, Start Overcoming. The title is OCD Leaves Clues. That's just a little tiny book getting people to understand that there is hope for OCD. It's just talks about CBT and ERP. And I am giving this book out to anybody who is interested. I can give you a PDF format for being here tonight. So let me know. Just send an email to info@theocdcoach.com and I'll be happy to send you a PDF version. And then my second book, this was where all the vulnerability took place. This is my journey living with OCD from the beginning to the end, because I will always have OCD, but I always say it no longer has me. This book is a book of passion. It's a book of where I show my vulnerability side, right from the beginning when I didn't know I had OCD, but I know I had some really peculiar behaviors, but I couldn't put a name to it. So it's my journey alongside OCD, and the book itself is called OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, 6 Secrets to the Deliverance from OCD, and it's quite in depth. It talks about the different types of OCD. As one of the chapters reads, I titled it OCD Comes in Many Flavors. And all the way along to being diagnosed, and then when the real work began, the hard work of overcoming it. And then there's also a chapter in there for family and loved ones, because we can't only treat the person with OCD, we must treat and support the people living alongside their loved one that's living with it. So there's a lot of really good information on here. It's available on Amazon.ca or any Amazon in the country, where depending where you live, you can Google it on Amazon. And if you need any other information on that one, feel free to reach out. And this book is called Reach Your Greatness. I was co-authored with Nick and Megan Unsworth, who were 2 of my mentors, as well as my coach. I have, his name is James Melanchuk from The Secret Millionaire. So there were several of us, as you can see, many of us. We had each had a little chapter in here about how to reach your greatness. So I hope you reach your greatness, and I hope that this evening has been helpful for you. If you want to get on a 15-minute free call, don't hesitate to reach out through our website and follow the link, and I will meet you there. So take good care and bye for now. I'm just gonna stop for